Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. Last week we had made it up to Dutchman's Creek, which is right on the edge of Southport in North Carolina. This week we're going to head up the Cape Fear River, and we're going to pop over to the Intracoastal Waterway where we make it up to Wrightsville Beach. We end up staying in Wrightsville Beach for a few days, but then we get back on the ICW and continue our way north as we make it past the New River Inlet, and we make it to Mile Hammock Bay. That's about as far as we're going to make it this week, so we might as well go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. After spending the night in Dutchman's Creek, we were actually able to sleep in the next morning. We got about an extra hour of sleep, so it wasn't anything groundbreaking, but, you know, we actually got to leave in daylight for once, which was which was kind of neat. And the reason why we slept in the next morning, for a couple of reasons. One, it's only 23-ish miles up to Wrightsville Beach, so it's not that long of a trip. And if we slept that extra hour, we would catch the point where the incoming tide overpowered the natural flow of the Cape Fear River, and the current would reverse and start going up the Cape Fear River. Most of the time, the current is flowing down the river. There's about a 4-hour window each tide cycle where the flow reverses and goes back up the Cape Fear River. So we wanted to ride that all the way up to the Snows Cut. And it was going to be a very calm day, which is nice. Cape Fear River can get pretty choppy, and it's very heavily trafficked. Now on this journey, we didn't come across any tanker ships, any military transports, or any cargo ships. Usually we see at least one of those. But there's plenty of other traffic. So there are like passenger ferries or where they carry vehicles, and there are just tons of fishing vessels. You've got Viking, 80-foot Viking tri-deck fishing vessels that are going by you at full speed. And I have absolutely no problem with that. In the Cape Fear River, you cannot expect people to slow down for you. It just doesn't make sense. And as long as they pass you and give you enough room so that you can turn into their wake, it's absolutely no problem at all. A lot of people will freak out when someone passes by at speed that causes significant wake, and I can understand that if you're in a canal. I don't like it either. No one likes it if someone passes by you and you don't have enough room to turn into their wake, because it just throws everything around downstairs. It's really not a nice thing. But if you're in an area where there's plenty of room and they pass you at speed and give you plenty of room to turn into their wake, absolutely no problem. Some of those beasts, I imagine it takes quite a bit of fuel to get them up on plane, and if they stopped and slowed down for every sailboat that they came across, I imagine they'd be wasting a lot of fuel, and no one wants that. So it was a very pleasant day. We made it up the Cape Fear River to the Snows Cut, and I was a little apprehensive about going against the current in the Snows Cut. And as you can see, we zipped right through the Snows Cut. It wasn't an issue at all. As we approached the Snows Cut, the current was slacking off in the Snows Cut, so it wasn't running at full strength, and we zipped right up. We made 3.5 knots through the entire cut, which was better than I was expecting, so that was awesome. And this is one of those areas where nature plays merry hob with man stepping in and messing up Mother Nature's plan. So the Snows Cut is man-made, and there are two inlets. There's the Carolina Beach Inlet, and then there's the Cape Fear Inlet. And the Cape Fear Inlet runs the current up the Cape Fear River, and you would think the current coming up the river that we rode up to the Snows Cut would push up the Snows Cut, and we would be going with the current, the entire way to Carolina Beach. But the Carolina Beach Inlet actually overrides the Snows Cut directional flow. So the incoming current is pushing up the Cape Fear River, and it's also pushing in the Carolina Beach Inlet, which is pushing down the Snows Cut. So once the inlet, or the water flowing in from the Carolina Beach Inlet, pushes down the Snows Cut, it'll actually reverse and go up the Cape Fear River. So it's just one of those weird anomalies where man stepped in and screwed up Mother Nature. So there's just a kind of a flow anomaly there that's pretty interesting. And here we are passing one of the 4 inlets that we don't necessarily care for. This is the Carolina Beach Inlet, and the reason why this one is so tricky is because it's very dynamic. The safe path through this inlet changes all of the time. The sand shifts around constantly, and you really just have to follow the ATONs, or the aids to navigation, the buoys. The ATON positions change faster than the charts can be updated, so there's always a discrepancy between what you see on Navionics and the ATONs here. Now, they may line up every now and again if the charts are updated just after the ATONs were moved, but a lot of times you'll see different, the ATONs won't match what's on the chart, and I always follow the ATONs. You know, you can make your own choice on what is the best course of action, but the sonar charts in this area are not correct. If you try and shoot straight through, you will ground. Once you come through, if you have a good pair of polarized glasses, you can see the shoals, and they're very shallow, so navigating this area can be a little tricky, but if you follow the ATONs, you should be okay. And right now they have you going closer to the outer docks and coming back in. I'll put up a little screenshot here. The little yellow squiggly line is the line or the path that I took through this inlet, and that was following the ATONs. So that's the current path, and I'm sure when I come back through in the fall, it'll be different. After spending a couple of days in Wrightsville Beach, it was time to get back on the road. And we had to leave before sunrise, and I hate doing it here because the traffic here is off the charts. There are two inlets that are just absolutely insane. I'm sure if you get to South Florida, they're probably all this way. But in Wrightsville Beach and the Beaufort Inlet in North Carolina, they are both just bonkers. There's so much traffic there, especially on the weekend. Just the fishing traffic is unreal. There must be some good fishing in that stretch because it's just crazy town as far as boats, especially early morning boats. So I hate leaving before the sun comes up, but we had to make it to the Wrightsville Beach Bridge before 7 a.m. The Wrightsville Beach Bridge, they're very strict there. They only open on the top of the hour, so at 7, 8, 9, 10. But if you get there before 7 a.m., then it's on demand, so they'll open for you anytime if you get there before 7 a.m. Another reason that we leave so early is it's not just the Wrightsville Beach Bridge that we need to time, we also need to time the Figure 8 Island Bridge, which is 4 nautical miles away from the Wrightsville Beach Bridge. And it's hard for us to get from one bridge to the other in an hour. For us to go 4 knots for that entire time is tough, especially when we're fighting against the current part of the way. So if we get to the Wrightsville Beach Bridge, say 15 minutes before 7, that actually gives us an hour and 15 minutes to make it down to the Figure 8 Island Bridge. And that just gives us a little bit of wiggle room, and it makes making that distance a lot easier. I'd rather wait for 15 minutes at the Figure 8 Island Bridge than to just miss the opening and then burn a half an hour. So the Figure 8 Island Bridge does open at the top and bottom of the hour. But still, it's a long run for us. It's mid-30s. I think it's 36 or 37 nautical miles to get to Mile Hammock Bay. And that's a long run for us, especially when we're going to be fighting against the current for half the day. As we left the madness of Wrightsville Beach, we did come across one small fishing boat that had run aground. He must have hit a shoal going pretty decent because they were in the water trying to push the boat off the shoal, and it was not budging, so it was wedged down there pretty good. Now, unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to help. If I got anywhere even near their boat, I would have been grounded out long before them. They only probably have a 1-foot draft. And we obviously are much deeper than that. So once we got out of the madness of Wrightsville Beach, everything calmed down. It was nice, a very nice morning, very pleasant. And we made our way up to the Figure 8 Island Bridge. And that does open on the top and bottom of the hour. And there was a boat that was hauling butt, another sailboat that was a few miles away, and they called the bridge, and they were going to try and make that next opening. And they thought that they were going to miss it only by a few minutes, which would really stink. So sometimes bridge operators do have a little bit of wiggle room, so I contacted the bridge and let them know if they have any wiggle room on their opening time that, they could, don't worry about me. If we can wait 5 minutes and get the people behind us through as well, that would save him an opening. It would save the people behind me a half an hour, and for me to wait an extra 4 or 5 minutes is not a big deal. So, and that's what we did. So it worked out perfectly. They came steaming up, and the bridge operator just opened the bridge a couple minutes later and got us all through. So life was good. It was an absolutely beautiful day as we made our way to Mile Hammock Bay. Now, the last challenge that we would have to contend with before anchoring for the night in Mile Hammock Bay is making it through the New River Inlet. And this inlet is the one that I hate the most out of all of them. The shoaling there is extreme. The currents can be extreme. Now, we got very lucky this day. We were on a low part of the tide cycle, and it was a very gentle current this day. I've been through the New River Inlet when the current is just ripping, and you literally have to point your bow towards shore, and you're sliding sideways through the entire inlet, which is not pleasant, especially when you don't know exactly where the shoals are. But the shoaling there has gotten so extreme. I've got a cell phone clip that I'll put in towards the end of this that shows, it looks back over the shoaling, and it is ridiculous. It's only a couple of feet deep for most of that inlet, and the route through the inlet has changed. Now, I had checked this out beforehand, and I've got a video synced up with Navionics as I went through the inlet with the new route of travel, and there was some contention as to which way to go around a shoal. Now, I decided to follow the ATONs. The ATONs and Navionics both told me to go that way, but most of the people that I saw going through the area went a different way, and some of them were actually grounding. So I decided to be, a rebel and follow the path that I was told to follow. So I tend to play it safe. Now, as I was going through the inlet, because the tide cycle was so low, I think we were only up about 1.3 feet. I have a screen grab of that too. I'll put up here, the state of tide when we were going through. But because the current was so gentle at that point in time, I actually could back off the power. Now, I know I've said in the past you never want to back off the power going through an inlet, and typically you don't. But here I knew the current was going to be very gentle, and with the new path of travel, if there was a shoal there, I didn't want to hit it going 2 or 3, or I guess we would have been going 3 or 4 knots. I'd much rather hit a shoal going 2 knots than 4 knots. So I backed off the power, but I kept it in check, so I would always maintain control. You do need to be going forward through the water in order to maintain really, really good control. At least I do of El Jaleo. So we made it through no problem. I followed the new path. I saw no less than, I believe it was 9 feet when I went through there. It was plenty deep. I wasn't, I was obviously nervous going through it, but this is the one inlet that always gives me the most stress. Before a race, you always get that. I was in cross country and track, and before a race, you get that flop sweat panic. It's almost like a fight or flight thing, and I get that same feeling when I'm going through this inlet for whatever reason, because you just never know what you're going to encounter. But thankfully, we made it through this time okay. And if you're using Navionics, always make sure you update your Navionics maps. Now, it can be a situation like in Carolina Beach where the map had not been updated to the new ATON location, or it can be a situation like the New River Inlet here where the map had been updated with the new ATON locations. So I always update my maps at least once every 2 days. So, and if I'm going through an area like this where I know it's going to be a problem, I make sure and update my maps that morning right before I leave. So it gives you the best chance of making it through. It can give you the most up-to-date information. But sometimes you pop around that corner, you're in a very, very strong current, and you're seeing ATONs that are not matching your chart, and it always causes me anxiety when that happens. But just follow. Go. I always go with the ATONs. Like I said, you guys can do what you need to do. But so thus far I've not been led astray doing that. So, but ATONs can be pushed off of their station. Every now and again you hear reports on the radio. It's okay, hon. Just relax. I'm almost done. Of ATONs that are out of place. So. It's always a little bit of a crapshoot. Weegs, do you want to come in, princess? Are you okay? All right, I'm going to go take care of the princess, so... And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.